Hi, my name is Paul Bolger, and I work in the arts, I guess you could call it. Do a bit of everything. Make music, make films. I got back into visual art, painting, drawing again recently, and I suppose if I have a day job, it's making animated movies. And you're here in the headquarters. I was always interested in comics and stuff like that as a kid. When I went to college, I studied graphics locally in the WRTC as it was back then. But I got into animation and I was always drawing, always painting. But as I get older, I feel like I need to gravitate more towards that. And you can see some of the things behind me. I suppose if I had to say that something got me inspired or in going in terms of, yeah, it's historical stuff. I have a big interest in Irish mythology and history. And I did a graphic novel a few years ago based on Cuchulainn called Hound. There's a bit of news on that, actually. You're going to get a bit of an exclusive. I can't tell you exactly what the story is, but, well, I can. There's a little fella kills a dog in that. The story with the book is that we did the book about 4 or 5 years ago, but it's just been picked up by a major publisher, so that's going to come out next year, which is mad and exciting. So that'll be all over the world, I hope. And that means I might do even more of that kind of comic book illustration kind of thing, but I'm still going to push towards exhibitions and paintings, I think. And I still do the film, and I don't know, I do too many different things. But at the moment, it's all, if it's visual, I do it. And I suppose if I had to sum up what I do, I suppose it's analog and it's digital, right? So in terms of art, anyway. A lot of the film stuff I would do at the moment would be either designing films or storyboarding them. And that's done on a computer, but it's hand-drawn on a computer. So it's like having a huge iPad that I draw directly into, and that goes into a system using something like Photoshop or whatever. And then the analog, I suppose, is painting and drawing on paper, and that's more fine art or whatever. There's two sides to that, I suppose. One is the one I'm hired to do, which I bring the bit of skill, if I have any, to that. And the other stuff is what I like to do. So one funds the other. So I use sometimes the paid work, film work, and other things like to fund when I get time off to do what I want to do. But the thing with computers, drawing on computer, it's not that different, actually. I kind of mix and match. I would sometimes draw on paper or paint and then scan it and play with it digitally. But the idea of painting direct onto canvas, old school, appeals a lot too. Yeah, so it's a real mix. It's an interesting mix, and it keeps everything interesting. There's always some new challenge I haven't seen before, especially with the computer end. It's a funny thing, you talk about if there was a film that might have inspired me. I don't get to work on a lot of adult movies. It's interesting enough, I work on kids' movies. And by adult, I mean, not porn. I mean science fiction or gangster movies or whatever, something made for somebody over 18. When you work on animation, a lot of it is either it's family or it's for younger kids. And I tend to work in an area in animation. I don't work on animation for younger kids. I tend to do slightly older or what they call family films. And every now and then you get to work on something in animation that is for, obviously, an older audience. But I'm a bit of a gun for hire in that world, so I kind of tend... But I am at a stage, too, where I work on what I like, and I work with people I like, which is nice. But when it comes to my own stuff, yeah, inspiration, yeah, it would be, it is things like Alien or all the classic films. But I probably, depending on the hat I wear, speaking about inspiration, it depends on the project. Like when I did the Hound book, it might sound funny, but I used Caravaggio as an inspiration as opposed to other comic books. There were some comics that I'd like, but they wouldn't be what you'd expect. They might be stuff from Argentina or Italy from the 60s. So I'd be looking for slightly askew. And then there are some modern American artists that I like, maybe that I nicked a couple of ideas from. But generally, it's the inspiration comes from the project. It's always about the project, and it's always about the story for me. So it's always about finding how can I visualize or get this thing across, and then that dictates the style. So, just let me get one thing because it might be interesting. It's a blend of the two. But an example of the thing about selling art, right? It's something because I do it as a job, I suppose, as a profession. When I go to paint something, I don't want to give them away. I like them. This is funny, right? Because this is an album that I did last year, put it out last year, music album. But I was looking for a cover, and I said, what's the cheapest way to get a cover is use one of your own paintings. But if you're talking about style or inspirations, I came back from a film trip a few years ago, and I was wrecked with a jet lag. And I was down there at 3 or 4 in the morning, I couldn't sleep, and this came up. But So I tend to mix what I do. Like I put my images, if I go and do it in music, I'm going to use my own paintings. But then I started to develop, like this was done in Canada. We recorded this record in Canada and a little bit here as well. I think we did the vocals in Kilkenny. But what was interesting was two feelings started to emerge. And I realized that the more organic, because this album to me sounds quite organic, and I wanted to do something that was very handcrafted, this painting. But then this is won't be out until later in the year, but this is my new record. But that's my uncle. He's used to be a very well-known boxer in Waterford called Jimmy Jackson. And he's dead now, unfortunately. He was a really nice guy. But he was a bit of a lost soul. And I just thought, this album was recorded in Ireland, and this has a slightly different vibe to the other one. So I realized that I'm hitting on different ideas, whether it's an old photograph, which I think might have been taken by Annie Brophy, actually. I think. Because my grandmother knew her very well from the Mayor's Walk. They used to live where Johnny Walker's chipper is now. But Jimmy, anybody who sees him would probably, or of a certain age, might remember him. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm just mixing up the visuals. Like sometimes it's going to be, like I say, paint, an old photograph that I've reconstituted. So it's driven by the project. So everything that I do is driven by project. You know, there you go. And that's it.